Let me ask you something. What would happen if, for just 1 week, you stopped caring about things that drain you? What if you stopped explaining yourself, stopped obsessing over who likes you, and quit trying to be everything to everyone? You've been holding on to things that are pulling you down, and you know it. The problem isn't always that your life is too heavy. The problem is you're carrying too much that was never yours to hold. So today we're going to talk about something that may just set you free. The less you care, the happier you get. And it's not about apathy. It's about power, peace, and purpose. When you hear the phrase emotional detachment, it might sound like something negative at first. You might think it means being cold, disconnected, or distant. But the truth is, emotional detachment is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever develop if you learn how to use it the right way. It's not about shutting down emotionally. It's not about becoming numb or unavailable. It's about reclaiming your mental real estate. It's about choosing what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. Because here's the thing. Every single day, you're in a constant battle for your focus, your peace, and your happiness. And the more emotionally invested you are in the wrong things, the more drained, frustrated, and confused you become. We live in a world that glorifies emotional entanglement. You're expected to care about every comment, every post, every little thing someone says or doesn't say. But emotional detachment is what keeps you grounded when the world gets chaotic. It's what allows you to say, this situation is not worth my breakdown, or their opinion doesn't define my value. It's not about indifference. It's about intentional care. It's about saying, I choose not to let this control me. Emotional detachment helps you create distance between you and your triggers. That distance is not denial, it's clarity. You can look at a problem, a person, or a painful moment and decide whether it deserves your energy or whether it's just trying to hijack your attention. That kind of power doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you wise. Because the truth is, not everything requires your reaction. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every argument needs to be won. Not every invitation to drama deserves an RSVP. Detachment is the art of knowing when to engage and when to protect your peace. Think about how much time and energy you've spent worrying about people who've already moved on, obsessing over outcomes you can't control, playing mental chess with scenarios that may never happen. That cycle is exhausting, and it's not noble. It's self-abandonment. It's giving pieces of yourself away to things that don't nourish you. Emotional detachment steps in and says, not today. It helps you stay centered in a world that constantly tries to knock you off balance. And let's be honest, you don't owe your emotions to everyone. You don't have to be emotionally accessible 24/7. People will try to guilt you into caring about things that don't align with your values or your priorities. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're cold, but what they're really saying is that your boundaries no longer serve their needs. And that's okay, as the people who truly love and respect you won't be threatened by your emotional clarity. They'll be inspired by it. One of the greatest signs of growth is when you stop responding out of impulse and start choosing your emotional battles with intention. Emotional detachment allows you to zoom out and see the full picture instead of being consumed by one painful frame. It helps you make better decisions. It keeps you from saying things you'll regret. It gives you breathing room to think, to reflect, and to respond from a place of strength instead of a place of weakness. You see, peace is not the absence of chaos. Peace is the ability to remain calm within the chaos. And you can't do that if you're emotionally invested in every storm that passes by. Emotional detachment is your anchor. It keeps you from drowning in people's opinions, unrealistic expectations, and unhealthy attachments. It reminds you that your energy is sacred, that your emotions are not up for grabs, that your mental health is not a free-for-all. It's time to start asking yourself, does this situation deserve my peace? Is this thought building me up or breaking me down? Am I reacting from pain or responding from clarity? If the answer points to chaos, walk away. Detach, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom, out of self-respect, out of knowing that your peace matters more than your pride, your ego, or your need to be right. Emotional detachment is not running away from your feelings. It's choosing not to let your feelings run you. It's building a space between stimulus and response where power lives. It's understanding that not everything deserves your tears, your stress, or your time. It's choosing to stay calm when you could rage, choosing to be silent when you could argue, choosing to let go when you could cling. That's real strength. That's real control. That's the kind of emotional intelligence that changes your entire life. So the next time you feel pulled into drama, remind yourself, you don't have to go. The next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause and remember, you don't need to. You are allowed to care less about what doesn't matter so you can care more about what truly does. And that's not weakness. That's the highest form of emotional power you'll ever own. Caring too much about what people think is one of the most silent forms of self-betrayal. You wake up each day with this inner pressure, maybe not loud, maybe not even conscious, but it's there, pulling the strings in the background. It's in the way you choose your words so carefully in a text, the way you overanalyze a comment someone made about your appearance, or how you hold back your real opinion just to keep the peace. You think you're being kind, respectful, mature, but what you're really doing is negotiating your identity in exchange for temporary acceptance. And that's a dangerous trade. The constant need for approval is exhausting because it can never be fully satisfied. You could have 10 people compliment you, but one person questions you, and suddenly all your confidence evaporates. Why? Because your worth wasn't rooted in truth. It was hanging by the thread of someone else's opinion. This is what happens when your emotional thermostat is controlled by the reactions of other people. You're up when they're pleased, you're down when they're distant, and most of the time you don't even realize it's happening. Living for validation is like walking on a tightrope. Every step is calculated. You're always balancing, always guessing, always adjusting to what you think other people want you to be. You shapeshift into what feels acceptable in each room with each person. And before long, you forget what you actually believe, what you actually want, or who you really are. That's not life. That's survival. That's emotional slavery. When you need someone else to approve of your choices in order to feel okay, you've handed over the remote control to your self-worth. And here's the problem. People are fickle. Their opinions change. Their moods swing. Their projections, insecurities, and biases have nothing to do with you, but if you've made their approval your anchor, you'll sink every time they shift. One wrong look, one offhanded comment, one moment of silence, and you're spiraling. Not because you're weak, but because you cared too much. You were never meant to seek yourself in someone else's mirror. The people around you are not your measuring stick. You don't need them to clap for you in order to move forward. You don't need them to understand your path in order for it to be right. The day you stop living for applause is the day you start living in freedom. Because when you no longer need to be liked, you are free to be real. And real is where confidence is born. It's okay to want connection. It's okay to enjoy support, recognition, affirmation. That's human. But it becomes a problem when those things become your source, your lifeline. Because what happens when they stop? What happens when they turn on you? If your identity was built on their approval, their disapproval will destroy you. That's why detachment matters. Not coldness, not bitterness, but healthy emotional detachment. A mindset that says, I can appreciate your feedback, but I won't let it define me. Most people are too busy judging themselves to be judging you. And the ones who are judging you, they're not your people. Why spend your life editing yourself for an audience that doesn't even know the real you? Why waste energy trying to impress people who don't even respect themselves? It's time to let go, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're finally starting to honor who you are. The truth is, the more you chase approval, the more anxious you become. But the more you trust your own inner compass, the lighter and freer your life gets. You start speaking your truth. You start saying no without guilt. You start making choices based on your values, not someone else's expectations. And that is when happiness becomes sustainable, because it's not borrowed, it's built. You weren't created to live under the weight of constant judgment. You were created to live out loud, to grow, to take up space. But that only happens when you stop letting external opinions mute your voice. You are not too much. You are not too quiet. You are not too different. You are exactly who you need to be to walk the road you were meant to walk. But first, you've got to stop asking for permission. So stop checking how many people clapped. Stop editing your truth to avoid conflict. Stop performing. Start living. Because the people who matter won't need the polished version of you. They'll be drawn to your truth, your courage, your authenticity. And the more you live from that place, the less you'll need anyone's approval to feel whole. You are already enough. You always were. You just forgot for a little while because you were too busy trying to earn something that was never supposed to be earned in the first place. Approval is nice, but freedom is better. And that freedom begins the moment you stop needing everyone to understand, accept, or agree with you. The moment you care less, you start living more. And that's where happiness begins. People-pleasing sounds nice on the surface. It sounds kind. It sounds compassionate. It sounds like love. But what it really is deep down is self-abandonment. It's smiling when you're exhausted. It's saying yes when your whole soul is screaming no. It's putting other people's comfort above your own truth again and again until eventually you forget what your truth even is. People-pleasing is not just a bad habit. It's a silent destroyer of self-worth. Every time you betray yourself to avoid disappointing someone else, you reinforce the belief that your needs, your voice, and your peace matter less. And if you do that long enough, it starts to show. It shows in your anxiety. It shows in your resentment. It shows in that low, aching sense of burnout you carry with you everywhere. You cannot live a happy, empowered life while constantly shrinking to fit into someone else's mold. You can't keep saying yes to things that hurt you just because you're afraid of being seen as difficult. You can't keep tiptoeing through life hoping not to offend anyone while your own soul is suffocating from the silence. People-pleasing is a survival mechanism, yes. Maybe it worked in childhood. Maybe it kept the peace in your family. Maybe it helped you avoid conflict or feel accepted when you desperately needed love. But what served your survival back then is now sabotaging your joy today. And you've got to call it what it is. People-pleasing is not love. Love doesn't ask you to betray yourself. Love doesn't require you to abandon your boundaries. Love doesn't demand that you silence your needs. What people-pleasing often creates is performance, a carefully curated version of you that's based on keeping everyone else happy. But here's the catch. No matter how much you try, someone will always disapprove. Someone will always misunderstand you. Someone will always want more than you can give, so if you're going to disappoint someone, why let it be you? Saying no is not rude. Having boundaries is not selfish. Taking care of your mental and emotional health is not a betrayal to others. It's a commitment to yourself. When you start to care less about being liked and more about being respected, especially by yourself, everything changes. You start to show up differently. You start to speak up when something feels off. You start to prioritize your peace over temporary approval. And sure, that might ruffle some feathers. But the people who truly value you, the real ones, they'll adjust. They'll understand. They'll respect the version of you who finally chooses to stop dimming their light just to make others comfortable. People pleasing is exhausting because it's endless. There is no finish line. There's no moment where everyone claps and says, "You've pleased us enough, now go take care of yourself." No. The more you give, the more they expect. And the more they expect, the more you fear disappointing them. So you keep performing, keep sacrificing, keep smiling through the pain until one day you realize you're tired, resentful, disconnected, and empty. And that's not love. That's a trap. When you stop people pleasing, yes, there will be discomfort. You'll feel guilty at first. You'll question yourself. You'll wonder if you're being too harsh. But that discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're healing. It's a sign you're unlearning patterns that never served you in the first place. Growth always feels awkward at first. But peace, real peace, it's on the other side of that discomfort. You are not put on this earth to constantly soothe others while you silently suffer. You are not born to be small, agreeable, or invisible. You were born to be honest, to be whole, to take up space, to tell the truth about who you are, even if it shakes the room. You are allowed to set boundaries that protect your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. You are allowed to say, "That doesn't work for me." You are allowed to choose yourself. Not because you're selfish, but because you finally understand that self-respect is not negotiable. So if you want to be happier, if you want peace, if you want real confidence, start by caring less about pleasing everyone. Please yourself. Honor yourself, respect yourself, because when you do that, the right people will still love you and the wrong ones will fall away. Either way, you win. When you start focusing only on what you can control, everything in your life begins to change. It's not about giving up. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about finally recognizing the truth. You're wasting time, energy, and peace on things that were never yours to fix. And you do it out of habit. You try to fix how people see you. You replay conversations in your head, hoping to change them. You obsess over what someone meant in a text. But here's the raw truth. You can't control any of that. You can't control how someone feels about you. You can't control the outcome of every situation. You can't change the past. What you can control is how you respond, how you show up, how you use your time, and what you choose to let in. The moment you accept that truth, something shifts. You stop reacting to every trigger. You stop giving so much of your energy to things that don't deserve it. You stop being emotionally exhausted by people who were never meant to have access to your heart. That's what caring less really is. It's the shift from emotional chaos to personal clarity. And it starts when you narrow your focus. You see, life becomes heavy not because it's always hard, but because we keep carrying things that were never ours. You carry guilt from your past. You carry responsibility for people who refuse to take accountability. You carry the emotional baggage of relationships you should have let go of years ago, and when you finally let go of that weight, when you finally say, "I'm not responsible for everything and everyone," you make space for peace. This is not about being selfish. It's about being sane. People will call it selfish when you stop being emotionally available 24/7. They'll call it cold when you stop letting your boundaries be crossed. But the truth is, they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. They liked the version of you that overextended, that stayed silent to keep the peace, that always showed up, regardless of how drained you felt. And when you begin to shift, when you say, "I can't give energy to this anymore," they'll get uncomfortable. That's okay. You're not here to live according to their comfort. You're here to choose what's best for you, and sometimes that means walking away from the things you can't change. You can't change someone's character. You can't change someone's loyalty. You can't change the past, but you can change how much longer you let it control your future. Every time you obsess over the what ifs, every time you replay the past, you rob yourself of the present. Every time you try to fix someone else's mess, you abandon your own needs. This is not strength. This is self-abandonment disguised as kindness. Real strength is found in focus. It's saying, I don't have time for that anymore. I'm building something, I'm growing, I'm healing, I'm protecting my peace. When you stop trying to manage what you can't control, you begin to feel lighter, freer, calmer. You start realizing how much energy you are wasting on trying to be everything for everyone, trying to keep everyone happy, trying to control every detail of your life to avoid discomfort. And you realize it never worked. All it did was burn you out. Peace doesn't come from everything going your way. It comes from knowing that even when it doesn't, you'll be okay. It comes from knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on their response, their validation, or their love. It comes from knowing you can't force anything meant for you, and you don't have to. The key is detachment from outcomes. That doesn't mean you stop caring altogether. It means you do your best and then let go. You say what needed to be said and then stop overanalyzing it. You show up with your whole heart, and if it's not enough for someone, that's not your problem. When you can look at chaos and say, I won't let this touch my peace, you've unlocked a level of power most people never reach. This world is loud, it's chaotic, it's full of distractions, triggers, and things begging for your attention, but not everything deserves it. Not every battle is yours. Not every fire needs your water. You get to choose. You get to say, this doesn't serve me. You get to say, I'm not available for this kind of energy. And when you do, life starts responding to that clarity. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Most of the suffering in your mind comes from trying to control things outside of you. When you drop that habit, when you take ownership only of what is yours, your thoughts, your energy, your reactions, your time, you free yourself. You stop being a victim to everyone else's behavior. You stop living your life in reaction mode. You become the one who chooses. You become the one who decides what matters and what doesn't. And that is where real happiness begins. When you stop trying to fix everything and start focusing on what you can actually change, your mindset, your boundaries, your energy. That's the day everything shifts. That's the day you stop surviving and start living. Not everything requires your energy, your response, or your emotional investment. In fact, one of the most liberating lessons you'll ever learn is this: not every situation deserves your reaction. The moment you stop reacting to every trigger, every insult, every misunderstanding, your life begins to change, not because the world gets easier, but because you get smarter with your energy. See, your peace is expensive. Every time you respond to nonsense, you spend a little more of it. When someone pushes your buttons and you take the bait, you hand over control. You let someone else drive your emotional state. And most of the time, that person doesn't even deserve a seat in your life, let alone the power to steer it. Well, most people react out of habit. Someone says something rude, you fire back. Someone posts a passive-aggressive comment, you obsess over it. Someone misunderstands you, you write a novel trying to explain yourself. But here's the truth. Maturity is learning how to pause. Power is knowing when to stay silent. Wisdom is choosing your battles, and more often than not, choosing to walk away from them entirely. You don't have to show up for every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every criticism or prove yourself to anyone. Sometimes the best way to win is not to play. Silence can be louder than any response, and walking away can be more powerful than any comeback. When you care too much about every opinion, every misstep, or every confrontation, you lose your peace to situations that are beneath your growth. Let that sink in. Your peace is not supposed to be thrown around every time someone disrespects you or disagrees with you. Peace is something you protect like it's sacred, because it is. The world is loud, people are reactive, drama is everywhere, and if you're not intentional about what you give your attention to, you'll drown in it. There's a difference between being passive and being strategic. Ignoring things that don't matter isn't weakness, it's discipline. It takes strength to look at chaos and choose calm. It takes self-respect to say, that's not worth my time. It takes emotional intelligence to realize that most reactions are just ego in disguise. The need to be right, the need to be seen, the need to win. But what are you really winning if you're constantly in a war over things that don't even move your life forward? Choosing not to react doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about your growth, your sanity, and your goals than you do about petty distractions. It means you've reached a point where you'd rather protect your mental space than be consumed by every emotional fire someone else starts. Think about the last time you got pulled into something that didn't deserve your attention. How much time did you waste thinking about it? How much emotional weight did you carry? How distracted were you from the things that actually matter? Your dreams, your peace, your purpose. That's the price you pay for reacting to everything, and it's not worth it. You need to develop the habit of detachment. Not detachment from life, but from the need to respond to every noise around you, because most of it is just noise. It doesn't need your reaction. It doesn't need your validation. It doesn't need your emotional signature. The moment you realize that, the less chaos you'll invite into your world. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you build emotional muscle. Every time you choose distance over drama, you claim back more of your peace. And every time you choose peace, you get closer to the kind of life you actually want. One that feels lighter, freer, more focused, and less exhausting. So next time you're triggered, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this a battle that leads to growth, or is it just noise trying to bait me into chaos? And then make a powerful choice. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your energy. And your peace, it's too precious to be spent on things that don't matter. That's what it means to care less and live more. It's not about indifference, it's about intention. It's about valuing your energy so much that you refuse to waste it. And once you master that, you won't just be happier, you'll be untouchable. Being at peace with yourself isn't just about doing yoga or meditating or journaling. It's about discernment. It's about learning how to choose your battles, your focus, and your emotional investments wisely. Most people live in a constant state of emotional turbulence, not because the world is chaotic, but because they allow everything and everyone to have access to their inner world. They let opinions in, they let drama in, they let unresolved guilt, unnecessary obligations, and outdated identities in, and wonder why they can't sleep at night. Peace isn't found by accident. It's created intentionally by becoming selective. Selective with your time, your energy, and your care. You are not supposed to absorb everything. Not every message, not every mood, not every look or silence or comment is meant to be internalized. But somewhere along the way, you were taught that to be caring, you had to be involved in everything. You had to answer every call, respond to every text, explain every decision, and emotionally process everything happening around you. But that's not emotional intelligence. That's emotional exhaustion, and it's unsustainable. Discernment means knowing the difference between what deserves your energy and what deserves your silence. It means recognizing that you don't need to show up for every argument you're invited to. It means walking away from people, conversations, and environments that constantly disturb your nervous system. The reality is, some things only have power because you keep participating. Some people only get access to your peace because you keep giving them a key. The truth? You don't need to slam the door. You just need to stop unlocking it. Start asking yourself different questions. Does this deserve a response, or does it just want a reaction? Is this worth disrupting my peace for? Is this mine to carry, or have I picked up someone else's baggage again? When you become more aware of these questions, you start to develop boundaries, not just with people, but with thoughts, with patterns, with narratives you've been holding on to for too long. And when those boundaries are in place, peace follows like a shadow. Peace isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like letting the call go to voicemail. Sometimes it looks like not replying to the message. Sometimes it's choosing a walk over a fight, choosing silence over validation, choosing sleep over revenge. Peace is quiet confidence. It's the ability to know who you are and what you stand for without needing to prove it to everyone around you. You have to stop handing out emotional real estate like it's free. Every time you let someone's negativity take up space in your head, every time you replay an argument, every time you hold on to a grudge or overanalyze a comment, you're letting them live rent-free in a place that's supposed to be reserved for your growth, your dreams, your joy. And here's the reality. There's only so much space in your heart and your mind. The more you clutter it with noise, the less room you have for peace. That's why discernment is so critical. You have to choose what stays and what goes. And if something is not aligned with your healing, your clarity, your progress, it goes. Don't confuse discernment with indifference. Caring less doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming clear. It means understanding that your peace is a limited resource and not everyone gets access to it. It means realizing that your sanity is worth protecting, even if it makes you look selfish. Sometimes protecting your peace will make you misunderstood. Do it anyway. Sometimes choosing silence will make people uncomfortable. Do it anyway. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that is constantly available, constantly agreeable, constantly drained. The biggest transformation in your life happens when you realize that being unbothered is not a trait, it's a skill, it's a discipline, it's a lifestyle. It's developed when you stop needing to win every conversation, when you stop craving closure from people who never gave you clarity to begin with, when you stop needing to be liked in rooms where you were never respected. Peace begins where the need to be understood ends. And here's the beautiful part. Once you learn how to discern what's truly worth caring about, your whole life shifts. You start feeling lighter. You stop chasing people and start attracting peace. You stop explaining yourself and start respecting yourself. You stop fixing things and start letting them be. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. So if you want more peace, you don't need more productivity or more noise. You need more discernment. You need to start being incredibly picky about where your energy goes. Because your peace, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's what keeps you grounded, clear, and whole in a world that profits off your distraction. Protect it like it matters, because it does. When you stop caring about things that don't serve your goals, your energy becomes laser focused. Life is full of distractions, people trying to pull you into their drama, noise from social media, expectations from society, and the endless chase for perfection. But here's the thing, you only have so much bandwidth. You only have so many hours in a day, so much energy to give, and so much mental space to think clearly. And when you're wasting that space on things that are not aligned with your growth, your peace, and your future, you're operating in chaos. Caring less is not about becoming numb or detached from reality. It's about becoming selective. It's about recognizing that every time you stress over someone else's opinion, you're stealing time away from building your own dreams. Focus is one of the most powerful forces on the planet, and you can't focus when you're overthinking, overanalyzing, or emotionally entangled in situations that don't deserve your attention. Every time you overcare about who's talking behind your back, every time you try to micromanage how others perceive you, you are draining your potential. There's a direct connection between caring too much and losing your focus. And when your focus is gone, your clarity is gone. Your goals start to blur. You start reacting instead of creating. You start surviving instead of thriving. The people who make real progress in life are not the ones who care about everything. They're the ones who know what to ignore. Every time you choose not to engage in pointless arguments, every time you don't reply to the petty message, every time you stop scrolling mindlessly through things that upset you, you reclaim a piece of your mind, you reclaim your focus, and with that focus, you get momentum, you get results, and those results, they create fulfillment. That's the connection. When you care less about distractions, you make more space for progress. You trade noise for clarity. You trade validation for vision. So many people are exhausted, not because they're working too hard, but because they're emotionally invested in too much nonsense. You care about people who don't care about you. You're chasing approval from people who don't even know themselves. You're trying to fix things that are not your responsibility. And meanwhile, the things that matter, your health, your peace, your dreams, they're being neglected. No wonder you're burned out. The more you care about what doesn't matter, the less capacity you have for what does. Letting go of that excess noise isn't just a luxury, it's a requirement if you want to level up in life. You can't carry your vision forward if you're dragging around everyone else's opinions. You can't move fast if you're constantly second-guessing every decision because of fear of judgment. You want to grow, you want to be free? Then learn to say, that's not my business, and move on. Learn to care less about what makes you spiral and more about what keeps you grounded. You know what happens when your focus sharpens? You stop reacting emotionally to everything. You stop being triggered by every little thing someone says. You become calm, centered, and unshakable. That's not cold. That's powerful. That's what happens when you take your energy back from the noise and give it to your purpose. You start making decisions based on your goals, not on your fears. You start building something real instead of constantly managing other people's opinions. You become more intentional, more strategic, and more aligned. And don't let anyone make you feel guilty for this. Some people will say you've changed. Some will say you've become distant. Let them. Your focus is not a public service. It's a survival skill. You don't owe everyone your attention. You owe yourself your best shot at becoming who you were meant to be. And to do that, you need to care less about distractions and more about direction. So stop trying to split your focus in 100 directions. Choose your 5, choose your priorities, choose what really matters, and let the rest fall away. You'll be amazed how much peace, energy, and joy rushes in when you clear out the mental clutter. You'll finally feel like you're moving forward again, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped caring about everything and started focusing on what matters most. That shift, that's how happiness begins. Your happiness is not a group project. That truth can feel like a punch in the gut if you've spent most of your life trying to earn love, approval, and acceptance. But it's also the most liberating mindset you can ever adopt. The moment you realize that your joy isn't dependent on anyone else showing up for you, validating you, choosing you, or even understanding you, that's the moment everything shifts. Because for so long, we're taught to outsource our happiness to relationships, to our family's approval, to whether people invite us, like our posts, compliment our efforts, or choose us back. And here's what that leads to. You spend your life waiting for someone to tell you you're enough, waiting for someone to change, waiting for people to finally understand your worth. And in that waiting, you lose yourself. When you care too much about how others respond to you, you give them emotional authority over your well-being. You tie your self-worth to their behavior. If they ignore you, you question your value. If they praise you, you feel good. If they criticize you, you spiral. That's not peace. That's emotional instability disguised as caring. And here's what's worse. People can sense when you need them for your happiness. It creates imbalance, it creates pressure, it makes you easy to manipulate. Because anyone who can affect your peace that easily can also take advantage of it. That's why reclaiming your joy means reclaiming your power. There comes a moment when you get tired of feeling like your emotions are on a roller coaster, dependent on how someone else is acting today. One day they text, you're happy. The next day they pull away and you're broken. That's no way to live. That's not love. That's emotional dependency. When you finally get this, something clicks. Your joy was never supposed to come from them. It was supposed to come from within. And when you start building that inner source, you become emotionally self-sufficient. You stop chasing conversations. You stop overanalyzing silence. You stop interpreting distance as a reflection of your worth. You start realizing that your energy, your peace, your life, it's yours to protect. It's not about not loving people. It's not about not caring. It's about detaching your happiness from their reactions. It's about understanding that even when people don't show up how you wish they would, you still get to feel okay. You still get to sleep at night. You still get to laugh, move forward, and feel proud of yourself. That's what it means to take back your joy, to stop waiting for someone to love you the way you deserve, and start waiting for that love to yourself, fully, without hesitation, without apology. Most people will never change. And even the ones who do, it won't happen on your timeline. So if your happiness is hanging on the hope that they'll finally treat you right or say the words you've been dying to hear, you're handing over your life to a maybe. And that's a dangerous way to live. You don't need closure from them. You need closure with yourself. You don't need their apology.